Midnight Cowboy didn't just shock Hollywood in 1969. It broke it wide open. It arrived like a jolt of electricity, dark, unflinching, and brutally real, dragging audiences out of fantasy and straight into the shadows of New York. The only X-rated movie to win Best Picture, it pushed boundaries at every turn. Elvis was almost cast, Bob Dylan was nearly on the soundtrack, and one of the most iconic lines in film history came out of a near collision with a taxi. From grit and scandal to cowboy hats in Manhattan, Midnight Cowboy was a cultural earthquake. Here are 20 weird facts about Midnight Cowboy you probably didn't know. Number 1. The only X-rated Best Picture winner. When Midnight Cowboy premiered, the Motion Picture Association branded it with an X rating for its frank portrayal of prostitution, homosexuality, and urban despair. Studios panicked. An X-rated movie winning awards was about as likely as a nun headlining at Studio 54. And yet, it went on to claim the Academy Award for Best Picture, the only X-rated film ever to do so. Its win stunned Hollywood and sparked debates about censorship, morality, and the future of cinema. By 1971, the MPAA softened its rating standards, and without a single frame change, the film was reclassified as R-rated. The world hadn't changed, the rules had. If the rating caused outrage, the casting choices caused just as much surprise. Number 2. Jon Voight was almost passed over. Joe Buck, the naive Texan hustler, defined Jon Voight's career. But casting him was far from guaranteed. Studios first approached big names like Warren Beatty, Michael Sarrazin, and even Elvis Presley's name was floated in the mix. Voight, then a relative unknown, campaigned relentlessly for the role. He promised to work for a fraction of the salary and convinced director John Schlesinger that his raw, unpolished energy matched Joe's innocence perfectly. The gamble paid off. Voight's vulnerability and wide-eyed charm became the film's beating heart. His performance earned him an Oscar nomination and transformed him from a struggling actor into a Hollywood leading man. And while Voight embodied innocence, his co-star transformed himself into filth, grit, and sickness. Number 3. Dustin Hoffman transformed himself into Ratso Rizzo. Audiences who knew Dustin Hoffman from The Graduate couldn't believe what they saw in Ratso Rizzo. To create the character's limp, Hoffman put pebbles in his shoes, and to perfect Ratso's rasp, he rehearsed until his voice resembled a broken harmonica, hoarse from a week in a smoke-filled subway. He refused to bathe, wore grimy clothes, and avoided brushing his teeth, ensuring he smelled and looked the part of a man living in squalor. Even co-star Jon Voight recalled being shocked at Hoffman's dedication. The result was so convincing that many viewers didn't even recognize him, cementing Ratso as one of cinema's most unforgettable anti-heroes. But Ratso's most famous line wasn't even written. It was born out of chaos on a New York street. Number 4. That iconic line was improvised. One of the most quoted lines in film history, "I'm walkin' here," wasn't in the script. While filming, a taxicab nearly hit Hoffman and Voight. Hoffman slammed the car and, staying in character, shouted the line. That improvised outburst became iconic, forever tied to Ratso's defiance, and it stands as one of cinema's greatest unscripted moments. So, apparently, in New York, a good punchline sometimes comes with a honking horn. Keeping improvisation aside, much of the film was grounded in real New York struggles. Number 5. Inspired by real New York street life. Director John Schlesinger and screenwriter Waldo Salt immersed themselves in Manhattan's underground world. They observed hustlers, drifters, and panhandlers, bringing their experiences directly into the script. The result was a film that felt authentic, almost documentary-like. This realism set Midnight Cowboy apart, making the city itself feel like a living, breathing character. But the grit started earlier, with the controversial novel that inspired the movie. Number 6. The book was just as controversial. Before the film shocked Hollywood, the story lived in print. James Leo Herlihy's 1965 novel Midnight Cowboy was already raising eyebrows. with its frank portrayal of male prostitution, alienation, and the search for connection in a cold city. Many publishers hesitated, fearing it was too scandalous, but when it hit shelves, it gained a cult following. Hollywood executives were wary too. Studios feared that adapting it would sink reputations and box office returns. But director John Schlesinger saw something others didn't. Beneath the controversy, he saw a raw honesty and humanity that could break through Hollywood's glossy surface. By choosing to adapt Herlihy's bleak vision, Schlesinger wasn't just making a film, he was throwing down a challenge to the industry. Tell the stories of those living in society's shadows, or stay stuck in musical numbers and plastic smiles. In other words, it was time to swap the champagne for street grime. The novel gave Schlesinger the blueprint, but it was the actors who brought the story's grit to life. Sometimes, even the briefest performances left an impact so powerful they rivaled the leads. Number 7. Sylvia Miles' 6-minute Oscar nomination. Sylvia Miles appears for just 6 minutes as Cass, Joe's failed client. Yet her sharp, unforgettable performance earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. To this day, it stands as one of the shortest screen times ever honored by the Oscars, proving that impact matters more than minutes. She basically proved that in Hollywood, 6 minutes of pure attitude beats 2 hours of polite acting. Speaking of impact, the film's soundtrack made history too. Number 8. Bob Dylan was almost part of the soundtrack. Before Harry Nilsson's Everybody's Talkin' became the film's haunting anthem, producers approached Bob Dylan. He was considered for the soundtrack, and some accounts even link him to the song Lay Lady Lay, though the timing never aligned. Nilsson's track instead became inseparable from Joe Buck's Lonely Walks, forever linked to the film's melancholy atmosphere, which proves that sometimes the second option becomes a perfect fit. Yet Midnight Cowboy wasn't just music and actors, it was also deeply personal for its director. Number 9. The director's own experiences shaped the film. John Schlesinger, a gay filmmaker in a deeply conservative era, connected with the story of outsiders struggling to belong. His sense of alienation and empathy for society's forgotten people poured into the film, shaping its tone. The authenticity came not only from research, but also from lived experience, giving the movie its emotional weight. That honesty allowed the film to redefine how men were portrayed on screen. Number 10. A revolutionary depiction of male vulnerability. In Hollywood's golden age, male characters were often invincible heroes. Midnight Cowboy shattered that mold. Joe Buck and Ratso Rizzo were fragile, flawed, and desperate. Their bond, part friendship, part survival, blurred traditional ideas of masculinity. Audiences had never seen two men portrayed with such emotional rawness. Number 11. Filming on a shoestring budget. The production budget was modest, forcing Schlesinger to film guerrilla style on the streets of New York without permits. The background extras? Genuine New Yorkers, hustling, glaring, and occasionally yelling things that weren't in the script. It was like the city became a co-star that didn't read lines and had a very short temper. But rawness comes at a price, and censors weren't ready for what they saw. Number 12. Censorship battles. Moral watchdogs condemned the film as indecent. Some theaters banned it entirely, while others screened edited versions. Ironically, the outrage only boosted ticket sales. Audiences flocked to see the film everyone was talking about. What critics called obscene, viewers saw as honest, and it became a box office success. Turns out, calling something forbidden is the fastest way to make people line up around the block. And within this dark world, one performance offered a spark of light. Number 13. Brenda Vaccaro almost stole the show. Brenda Vaccaro, playing Shirley, was praised for her warmth and humor. In a bleak narrative, she gave Joe Buck rare moments of tenderness. Critics described her performance as a breath of fresh air, and her chemistry with Voight reminded audiences that humanity could still be found amid despair. She proved that even in a city full of hustlers and heartbreak, One smile and maybe a wink can almost steal the movie. But despair returned quickly, sometimes from the actors' own bodies. Number 14. Ratso's cough was real. Dustin Hoffman's hacking cough wasn't scripted. It came from a real cold he battled during filming. Instead of hiding it, Schlesinger encouraged him to use it. The result was chilling. Ratso's decline felt heartbreakingly real, blurring the line between performance and reality. And that realism carried into the film's unforgettable final act. Number 15. The ending was almost different. The now famous Miami bus ending was not always guaranteed. Early drafts kept Ratso alive or hinted at hope for Joe Buck. Schlesinger refused. He insisted the story end in tragedy, with Joe holding Ratso's lifeless body. That devastating choice gave the film its lasting emotional punch. At first, not everyone appreciated that bold decision. Number 16. Critics were divided at first. Initial reviews were split. Some hailed the film's honesty, while others dismissed it as lurid sensationalism. But as the years passed, opinions changed. The same critics who once recoiled began to see Midnight Cowboy as a landmark achievement. Today, it appears on countless greatest films lists worldwide. And the Academy made its stance clear, showering the film with top honors. Number 17. It won the Big Three Oscars. At the 42nd Academy Awards, Midnight Cowboy swept Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Adapted Screenplay. Hoffman and Voight were both up for Best Actor, though John Wayne's True Grit took the prize. Hollywood had officially crowned a tale of hustlers and heartbreak, proving that even Oscar voters can get a taste of the rough side of the city, as long as it's in a tuxedo. But beyond trophies, the film's true legacy lay in the conversations it sparked. Number 18. The film sparked a broader conversation. By depicting themes of homosexuality, poverty, and loneliness, Midnight Cowboy challenged audiences to confront realities often ignored. It was no longer possible for Hollywood to pretend these issues didn't exist. The film cracked open the door for more daring, socially conscious storytelling in the 1970s, and generations of filmmakers never forgot the risks it took. Number 19. The legacy lives on. Directors like Martin Scorsese and Gus Van Sant have cited Midnight Cowboy as an influence. Its gritty style helped shape the new Hollywood era, inspiring films like Taxi Driver and My Own Private Idaho. Even today, echoes of Joe Buck and Ratso can be found in stories about outsiders struggling to survive. And to ensure it will never fade, history itself stepped in. Number 20. Preserved forever by the Library of Congress. In 1994, the U.S. National Film Registry selected Midnight Cowboy for preservation as culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. That honor ensures the film's survival for generations, guaranteeing that its groundbreaking story of desperation and friendship will always be remembered. Midnight Cowboy was more than just a film. It was a cultural earthquake. From improvised lines to historic Oscar wins, from censorship battles to lasting legacy, it shattered taboos and rewrote Hollywood rules. More than 50 years later, its story of two broken men searching for dignity still feels raw and timeless. Some movies entertain, others provoke. Midnight Cowboy does both, and that's why its impact is eternal. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments. Do you think a film this bold could still be made today?